What would you say your first big break was?
People ask you that all the time when you're doing this. And I would say there's no such thing. There's like these stepping stone breaks. One was definitely Sideways, that was a life changer, being in an Academy Award nominated, Golden Globe winning, that was a life changer. And like going to the Golden Globe, like that was my first time going to an awards show and feeling like a fairy princess. But most importantly, it did open some doors that then I did a bunch of off-Broadway. And, I always like to say, you never know who's going to see you and how they're going to see you. And you just keep on showing up and showing up for the art. And for me, I feel so grateful to have been part of so many beautiful stories and such exquisite storytelling. I think Alexander Payne is a spectacular storyteller, and I hope I get to be part of more of his stories in the future. Genji Cohen is a spectacular storyteller. And when you can tell stories that help evolve culture, like that's what it's all about. When you think about how people see incarceration or how people see undocumented people, how people see trans people in the LGBTQ plus community, that show really helped open people's eyes and have more compassion, which is really why I do what I do. Like it never for me was about the red carpets. They're fun. The awards are fun, but the truth is like you get that award and then you have to get a job the next day,
that and the MetroCard will get you on the crosstown bus, right? Yeah.
And which is in part why I make my own work, because otherwise I think I'd be batshit crazy because it's uncomfortable. If you're not Nicole Kidman, bless her, working every single day of every week, there's some downtime, and feeling esteemable and valuable during the downtime is a part of the gig.
Well, let's talk about Orange is the New Black, and because I want to touch on the issues.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about it because people want to hear about it. So, can you tell me a little bit just about the process? Like, people like to hear, like, what is it like to become a part of a cast like that? And did you know it was going to be as big?
No, I mean, you never know anything's going to be big. Like, that's the real truth of anything, even if, it is star-studded and billions of dollars are being poured into it, it can flop. Like, I don't want to trash talk any movies, but this year there have been some movies that were made for hundreds of millions of dollars and didn't do well and have every star on the planet in them. So you just never know. In this case, we really didn't know. One of my favorite stories when I first got it, well, I'll even back up. So I first auditioned to play Laura Prepon's role of Alex, and I didn't get it. And I was heartbroken because it was the best script I'd read in so long. And I met Genji in the audition, and she was so awesome. And I was like, wow. And then I auditioned to play her best friend, Polly, I think it is. And I didn't get that. And then they offered me this like 3-line role of the executive assistant. And I was like, yes. And I, being who I am, I love the research. So I interviewed a bunch of actual, people who work in prisons, actual wardens. And I visited prisons, and I was like, okay.
Wait, can you tell me a little about that? That's fascinating. I love that.
It was really cool. Like, it was really interesting interviewing these wardens. They were mostly men. I found one woman. They didn't they didn't want to talk about it a lot. It's funny, right now I'm playing Secret Service, and similarly, like, they don't like to talk about themselves. You have to like really pull it out of them. But it was really interesting. And then, visiting a prison and having that feeling of like, what does it actually feel like not seeing it on TV?
What did you ask the wardens? Like, how their day-to-day is, or like, what are their inside thoughts?
All of the things, I definitely asked about the day-to-day, but like, why did you choose to do this? What's rewarding about your job? What do you love most about your job? What do you hate most about your job? That kind of stuff. It's like a podcast.
Do you think most actors do that type of research?
I have no idea. I love it. I do it every time. Everybody knows that about me. Yes. It's like, during the strike, I did a play off Broadway called War Words, which was actual words of soldiers from Afghanistan and Iraq. And so I played an actual woman, all of her actual words, and she does something called EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal, which is basically I defuse bombs, which I had no idea that this even existed. And I loved thinking about this woman who went into the military not to shoot people up, but to defuse bombs. Like, what a cool thing, like, she's all about peace in a way, like the idea. And so I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people who do this for a living. And I became really, lovely friends with one who I still text with over a year later. Shout out to Bree. And they really taught me so much about the military and about the people and about, like, I love learning these. That's the fun of what we do, is learning a whole different world, and you learn a whole different language. No matter, even if it's just English, you're learning the language. Secret Service has its own language. The military has its own language. Obviously prison has its own language. Yeah. And that's the fun of it, I'm a deeply curious person. I want to stay as curious as possible for the rest of my life, because I do think it keeps you young, staying in the I don't know and I wonder. And that's what I love what I do. And the more I can be in a new world, the more joyful and delicious it is.
I love that. So as you went on in your role on Orange is the New Black, your character got a promotion, right? Tell me, how did that
I ended up being warden. It was crazy. And then I got fired. And then, it was so fun. They wrote such a spectacular arc and journey over the 7 years. And that was the biggest gift on the planet. And I've never actually asked Genji about this, but, in the end, you just saw this softer side to Fig. She was just a badass bitch in the beginning. And I don't know if they would have written that no matter what, or if like my mushiness and my, but you never know, I guess.
Yeah. So, kind of looking back on your career, I think it probably feels like for a lot of us on the outside, that was like a big turning point, right? Yeah, and it took up, it was a long time. Yeah. On the other side of Orange is the New Black, you've taken on so much. One of the things I have in here is that you became a volunteer firefighter. The amount of things that you take on, blows my mind. And I think this speaks to your curiosity. Yeah. Can we talk about that one in particular? Because now that I understand how involved you are in a life of service, I understand it more. Yeah. But tell me about that.
Sure. So during COVID, we were very, very, very fortunate that we had someplace to go, privileged, one could say. And we lived in Fire Island. And where we lived in Fire Island, there's no cars, no hospital, no doctor during, off season. And all there is volunteer fire. And I felt so grateful to that place for saving my life and my family's life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, that I really wanted to give back to that community. And I knew a little bit about the volunteer fire department there. I knew that they had fire trucks. And our little town is called Saltaire, and they're we don't have a restaurant really. We just have a store, a library, a summer camp during the summer, but there's no, a ball field, a post office, and a firehouse. Mm-hmm. And I was I think I want to join volunteer fire and be of service, give back to this community. Not really knowing, definitely not knowing that to be volunteer fire, you have to train the same way as FDNY. Every firefighter in America has to train the same way. So I did the training, and it was one of the hardest, scariest things I've done in my entire life by far.